And we're back.
All right, man. Episode 11, Redux. The redo, because the first attempt at this episode, we ran into some technical difficulties on both ends for the first time. Hey, out of 10 or 11 episodes, only having to do a redo once, I think that's a pretty good record, man.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Yeah. No, it was a good
So
one.
yeah, so we were talking, and we try to hit all the same points again, but more succinctly, hopefully. We started talking about the natty versus, I guess, geared or not natty conversation, and my feelings of how kind of stupid it actually is when you boil it down. Um, because you got natty, supposedly, so-called natty lifters who are still enhanced, right? I think that's the best way to look at it is enhancement. And by enhancement, they're taking, they're spending hundreds of dollars a month in supplement stores buying creatines, and some of them are buying testosterone boosters and growth hormone boosters, all natural, but still, right? It's an attempted enhancement. Um, and pre-workouts, right? Pre-workout is I mean, caffeine is a performance enhancer. It's a performance enhancing drug, and depending on the organizations you compete in, caffeine's not even legal. I think in the Olympics, right? At least at Olympic level competition. And so yeah, we're
Yeah.
kind of there's this stupid argument about natty versus somebody that may be using a little bit of testosterone or whatever enhanced. And yeah, I think it's kind of a stupid argument at the end of the day, because everybody's trying to enhance themselves with something.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times too, I mean, every one of them has the disclaimers that none of these statements have been verified by any sort of like bodies, like third party testing can happen. But once again, it's your perfect bottle, your first round, everything's perfect. You got this test. And then you just say, it's lab tested. We know the quality. And I mean, you see so many of them, you have proprietary ingredients that they don't actually have to list. So you end up with, what is it, tainted supplements like the protein powder that had D-ball in it or something.
Bodybuilding.com, man. The guy got busted for putting D-ball in his protein powder. Like I can just see all these natty lifters being like, "Oh man, this protein powder really works." No, man, it starts with D-ball. You're not
That's
natty
the best
after all.
too.
I mean, that's
When-
that's unfortunate, right? That's kind of incidental. But yeah, I mean, none of these supplements are regulated, like you said. Testing is usually left up to the manufacturer, which they're self interested anyway. Um, so yeah, and I think it kind of boils down to, like, what is natty? What is natty versus geared, or enhanced versus not enhanced? And at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that a non-enhanced, a truly natty lifter, right? You better not be taking anything to enhance your performance. I mean, not even caffeine, right? Eating whole foods, living the real ancestral tenets, right? Minus all the growth hormone and steroids and ab implants or whatever Liver King has. But I mean, being actually very natural, living your life, off of whole natural foods, nothing fortified. You're not consuming anything to get an edge in the gym, right? Creatine is an enhancing substance. That's the point of it. And getting down to what's natural and what's not. I mean, isn't testosterone more natural than creatine? Because your body naturally produces testosterone, it doesn't produce fucking creatine, right? So, my kind of argument is that at the end of the day, everybody's enhanced in one way or another. Everybody's looking for an edge. I mean, we're the most drug addicted country in the world, too, the United States. People taking all kinds of prescription drugs and over the counter drugs to feel better about themselves. Like, that's not natural. And unless you fit into that very tiny, like, again, I'm joking when I say the ancestral, box, but I mean, unless you are like that natty, you're not natty. And and it's a bullshit. It's bullshit to go around like posting on everybody's social media, like all natural, question mark. Like, why does it matter to you anyway, right? If somebody chooses to use creatine or pro hormones or little testosterone, it's not really anybody's business at the end of the day. It's each individual's own choice, and really it boils down to a lot of hypocrisy anyway from the natty cult that's really not very natty after all.
Yeah, I mean, you see it everywhere. It was crazy to me to realize that some nutrition shops now sell like pro hormones, Instagram advertises SARMs to people. It's all out there. Like, there's all these things that people doing all these things to avoid, or not to avoid, but they trying to do these things to enhance their performance. Like, they're all PEDs
Yeah,
and everything. Like, what is it? Because I'm pretty sure the Olympic cutoff
because
is
it's
like 50
legal.
milligrams of caffeine.
I think it
Yeah,
is
which
15
is like,
milligrams of caffeine or something like that. I don't know what the blood
yeah,
concentration level is, but I think it's the equivalent of you if you consume more than 15 milligrams of caffeine, you're not qualified. You're going to be just DQ.
yeah. So you get your quarter cup of coffee, just like a few quick sips, but don't have the whole cup. Like,
Right.
God forbid
Probably
you get
better not.
disqualified.
Best to not even attempt to risk it at all.
And
Um,
that's, I mean, yeah.
go, but yeah, I mean,
Oh,
and you got like all these. Like, I get it, right? If you're competing in an organization and you're using substances that are banned, right? That's cheating, right? We can all agree
yeah,
with that. But the guy that's just out training to train to be healthy, to feel better about himself, have more confidence, to look good naked, right? It's not cheating for him to use anything because there's
yeah,
no rules to life, right? I guess you can argue the legality versus illegality, but you know, and I don't come after me, guys, but I'm fairly confident the number one population, the biggest consumers as a population, are military and law enforcement of illicit steroids. Right?
no, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Like,
It's prevalent
yeah,
throughout society. People are using it in sports. They're using it in their careers, their regular jobs, to perform. Enhance their performance. And again, professional sports, like people are so naive, I think, or willfully ignorant about even in these like the NFL, even though it's a banned substance, these guys are still using performance enhancing drugs. They're skirting around the rules somehow, right? There's ways around it. There's you make $10 million a year, you can afford a doctor to help you skirt around those rules, and you better believe that guys making $10 million a year, have thousands of guys standing in line to take their spot. They're doing everything and anything they can to maintain that contract, right? And the guys behind them are doing anything and everything they can to take it from them. So yeah, steroids are unfortunately are everywhere. It's something that we've got to accept, and it is what it is at the end of the day, whether it's cheating or not. But my biggest argument though is against the with the average folks, right? Natty versus geared lifting, whatever. At the end of the day, they're all enhanced, and it's a stupid argument. And I'm honestly sick of seeing, people posting on my social media the stupid question. All natural?
yeah.
Why does it
Because
matter?
I think people do. I mean, everyone's trying to find like a competitive edge, and I think what really throws things off is you have a lot of people who, I'd say, like Derek More Plates More Dates on YouTube has been great about like talking about the culture around fitness and these people. But you have, I mean, what is it? How many celebrities are selling their own fitness programs, their own nutrition programs? So you have Chris Hemsworth with his Circle app, where it's all like lightweight dumbbells and body weight exercises so you can look like Thor. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, you're probably not going to look like Thor doing body weight exercises.
Oh, natty. All
Those
natty.
people.
That's not really natty, but
And
again,
yeah,
it's understandable why people don't want to come out about, if they're using steroids or not. And again, very important to point out that, I'm not saying that anybody should use steroids. I think we'll get into that a little bit more. My feelings on the actual rampant abuse of steroids. It is a problem. But I do believe that, at least from a TRT perspective, right, testosterone or hormone replacement therapy, testosterone itself is perfectly safe. It has a lot of medical benefits. But yeah, I mean, I get why these guys don't want to come out, because it's been, testosterone just itself, steroids, it's lumped in with all of them, has been vilified for decades with just stupid reefer madness level propaganda, right? That somebody on
that's a public
steroids, they're all,
yeah.
if you're on steroids, you're just going to invariably just have a mental meltdown and just destroy everything in the house and hurt somebody, right? Well, that's not true, right? Roid rage is, has a debatable, it's total, slang, right? Roid rage doesn't really have a definite meaning to it. But my belief is that, guys who are already assholes are going to be bigger assholes using steroids, and people that are chill guys are just going to be chill.
Oftentimes
but
people
yeah,
do,
but it doesn't do anybody any favors, though. It's doing a disservice to the community, but not, these guys like Chris Hemsworth who are going and getting chiseled up using performance enhancing drugs, and then, kind of skirting around the truth and making it seem like this is attainable, naturally, when it's really probably not.
Yeah, because I would definitely say that, I mean, a part of it is like a lot of body image issues in this country of like Bigger, Faster, Stronger is a great movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. I think it's free on YouTube. But looking at the level of competition out there, but also the expectations people have. If you see these actors who during an off season, they'll get noticeably smaller, and then in the course of 6 months pack on 30 or 40 pounds of lean muscle or contractile tissue, as people call it. And it's like, that's just not reasonable. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, most of these people, they have to realize, like, these people, they're like, oh, it's their off season, that's why they look that way. It's like, most people can't just like over the course of a few months put on 10 pounds a month or whatever it is that some people you'll see out there, where it's just this high level of expectation that without that level of accountability or admitting what's happening, it does throw people off, because you have people all the time. That, I think that's really what the question stems from, is when you see enough images in pop culture, you actually don't know what's all natural, because there are like, there's people like Dwayne the Rock Johnson and Mike O'Hearn who are somehow looking better in their 40s and 50s.
Mike O'Hearn, he's the only man in existence that naturally produces tren inside his body.
It's just those goose eggs. This makes
me very
curious what's going on.
Yeah, I see your guesses.
They're up there like stuff. Yeah, in the hallway. It's those shadows. I thought the lights would be cool, but this is
that's awesome. But yeah, I think, I mean, it's a tough argument, right? I mean, steroids aren't going to make everybody like super strong. You still have to train, right? You still have to eat, still have to sleep well, right? Still have to manage your stress. But again, like, I'm going to kind of pivot maybe a little bit here. Those guys are making millions of dollars, for looking that way. These movies pay them tremendous amount of money. There's a lot of strength athletes that are making a ton of money, where, maybe it makes sense for them to take the risks, because there are risks involved with steroid use. I mean, I think they're minimal with testosterone by itself, especially under the care of a doctor. But we the real problem though that I think needs to be addressed is we've got strength sports, powerlifting, strongman. I don't know if I know CrossFit tests at the higher levels, but strongman bodybuilding is really bad. And powerlifting, these guys are using high levels of steroids for just the opportunity to win a trophy, right? And it doesn't make any sense really at the end of the day. And people are putting themselves at risk. And you're in the sports, strength sports long enough. I mean, you run into it. I run into it a lot, and it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, I competed at the top of the under 105Ks in the world. And it never ceased to amaze me how many guys I would run into that still just like, I mean, they're just putting shit into their body and taking zero precautions whatsoever. Some of the levels of doses that I've talked to guys that are taking, it's just like, dude, you're doing that to yourself just for a fucking plastic trophy, like for glory. Fucking stupid.
You
And
don't
no
understand.
precautions
It's
at
going
all,
to
right?
war.
What's that?
It's going to war. This is for glory.
Going
People will
going
remember
to
you forever
war.
doing this local show.
Yeah, it's nuts, and I think I've like, look, I mean, I've been on TRT since I was 35. Have I used a little higher doses? Of course, like going into competition. Like, I'm not gonna lie about it, but I have never in my life taken halo testing for starters and taken it for 6 fucking weeks straight. You know, and I know guys that have done that just for the chance of glory, and it's like it's insanity. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your life and it's your body, but you only have one life, and I think it's time that people kind of pull their head out of their asses and realize like these sports don't fucking matter at the end of the day. They don't matter that much. You're not going to make millions of dollars if you get hurt using these drugs. Like, it's all on you. Like, there's nothing coming to save you. The sport's not going to
Yeah.
save you.
And I think the main thing too people don't always realize is, I like with any kind of supplements of like these things are supposed to be supplemental. Like you need to make sure you've optimized everything else before you take any sort of these things, because a lot of times the thing is you realize people talk about like strongman being a poor man's sports. You see a lot of people wasting money who it's like, if you don't have money for t-shirts, you definitely shouldn't be wasting money on oral steroids that you don't know about the effectiveness, like especially like you said, of these things of no blood work being done. You
Yeah.
don't know where it came from. Like it's your friend who like you met at Gold's Gym who happens to know someone who has a connection, and you're like, a lot of times like you do need to take these precautions. But also, as far as even just like regular supplements, people need to, I'd say, like you said with TRT at 35, I would say that getting your hormones checked and trying to optimize your hormones with the doctor is definitely a smart move, just overall, not just for athletic performance, but overall confidence, overall mood, stability. It makes a huge difference, at least in my experience, to have work with a doctor and be able to optimize things as much as you can, and having those regular blood tests, because that's the thing. You talk about people doing oral steroids for like 6 weeks and stuff like leading up to
Not
something.
just any
I
oral
guarantee
steroid, like
you.
the most hepatotoxic steroid, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like you can't. There's only so much dude can do for you if you're not taking any precautions. Otherwise, like it's just. And that's the thing. People think that these things. I don't know if people just don't care about the consequences, or oftentimes I think people don't always know the consequences. Like you have a lot of people who just assume they're like, well, this person did it. Like if this high level insane person who's been training for years, like if they can handle it, I can handle it. And at the end of the day, you oftentimes can't. I worked in 2017. I worked for a Jimmy John's in Round Rock. That one of my friends who was a driver there, Joe, he was taking, he was, I think at the time he might have been 25, and he had been taking forever. Like he was just a big guy. His goal was to get big, but he had heart conditions, underlying conditions, and ended up passing away at 25. It's like that's a big deal. If you have these people having these health problems that, especially because you don't actually know what you're taking. Like half these things, if you're getting something that just comes in a Ziploc bag or whatever, or a container that like has someone's custom label on it, you don't know what it is. And that's the main thing is, for one, a lot of these supplements that they sell at like GNC, Vitamin Shop, and so many things, you actually don't know what's in there either. Of people all the time of like CrossFit athletes and other people talking about getting Osterin or other SARMs in their system. They're like, it's tainted supplements. Sure, that might be a cop out, but there are those stories of people actually putting those things in there and
Sure.
thinking like this will take it to the next level. And I think the biggest thing I would say is, if you look at some of these super high level athletes like John Hack, like listening to him talk on Elite FTS, he's actually, I mean, he does take a decent amount of oral steroids, but like he's not on as much testosterone as you would expect. Chris Bumstead's the same way. Of I think people oftentimes think more is better, but you see him like Liver King, $12,000 a month on growth hormone and random steroids, and you're like, yeah, he's massive and everything, but he probably could have done
He's
that
not.
with
He's not
saved
massive.
a
He's
ton of
like 4
money.
feet tall.
It's true. Okay, so those small guys, if you're a short king, you just look real good if you get some decent muscle and everything. He's
But
massive
he
to the
looks
normal
jacked,
person.
right? I mean, he looks jacked, but
Yeah.
I mean, he could probably look that way with a quarter of the shit that he's taking, right?
You
I
don't
mean,
think you need to
imagine
spend
all the side effects that he's dealing with. Like, and that's the problem
150
with
grand a year?
abuse, right? Is and I'm calling it abuse because when you're using that much gear, the side effects that you have to counter, you're just taking more and more shit, right? And more shit just
Yeah.
leads to more problems. I mean, it's the same thing even with pharmaceuticals, going through doctors. The more shit they put on you, have you on, the more side effects you have, and the more shit they have to put you on to counter the side effects. And it's a never ending vicious cycle of drug abuse. And I mean, you pointed out like less is more, and these guys, not even everybody is using, right? I know there's a few guys at the top, even in the 105Ks, are very, very impressive athletes who are not using steroids, right? Are they using performance enhancers? Sure. I mean, they're using over the counter stuff, but they're not using steroids. They're very strong, and so you think you're right. Some guys get it in their head that in order to be competitive, I've got to take as much shit as possible. I don't know what you would call it, but there is this kind of fallacy, if you will, delusion, maybe, that everybody is on a bunch of stuff, and so everybody starts taking a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah. I
Because there's
think
a
people,
belief that I want to be competitive. I got to take all this stuff, but the reality is, at the end of the day, is less is a lot more, and you're better off, right? Again, I'm a huge advocate of men over 35, maybe even over 30. Maybe you should start getting your blood checked at 30, but I'm definitely a big fan,
yeah.
big advocate of men getting their blood work done over 35. And if your blood serum levels or your testosterone levels are below 300, right, that's nanograms per deciliter, you should definitely be. I would even suggest if you're less than 400, honestly. But the right now the current medically accepted threshold is under 300. You should be on TRT, because to me the real definition of unnatural is low testosterone in men in their fucking 30s, right? This is a phenomenon that I think is happening more in recent times than in past. Why? I don't know. We can speculate all day. Is it environment? Is it food? Is it, chemicals? Is it the air? I don't know. But men are suffering from low testosterone. That's not natural. And it's not healthy, right? And like you said, having your hormones optimized has so many benefits. And doing it under the supervision of a doctor is really ideal, because they're going to make sure that you're getting your blood work done regularly, monitoring your testosterone, your estrogen, your cholesterol, everything that comes with the potential negatives, and again, on a TRT dose, very, very, very minimal, if any, using just testosterone. But the benefits are huge, right? The benefits so far outweigh any of the tiny risks. Yeah, I'm a big advocate,
Yeah.
and I think that more men, even in sports, should be looking at that avenue rather than listening to their gym bros tell them, you know, I'm gonna retell this story. We already talked about it once, but I don't know how many times I've listened to the gym bros telling other people what to take, right? And you kind of alluded to it. Do people really know what the dangers are? I don't think they do. I don't know if they care. They just listen to somebody tell them what to take, and they just go and just blindly, have a blind faith, put it in their body. But I was listening to this guy tell a friend of mine who has lupus, his liver is destroyed. He's on a transplant list to receive a new liver, and this guy is telling him, knowing he has lupus, to take 100 milligrams of Anavar. And I'm just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like I told him flat out, like, shut the fuck up. The guy's got lupus. Don't be telling him to take a hepatotoxic steroid. Like, you're an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if the guy gets caught, he could he could be taken off the transplant list, right? Because people that have psoriasis of the liver, cirrhosis of the liver, from drinking, right? If they get caught drinking, they get taken off the transplant list, right?
Yeah.
And it's possibly happened to him too. And so I'm like, don't listen to the gym bros, right? Don't listen to me. And that's kind of one of the big conversations I always have with everybody. People come to me and ask me questions about steroids. I've done a lot of research. I know a little bit. I'm not a doctor. I don't know as much as doctors do by any means, but don't listen to me. Don't listen to the gym bros. Sometimes I wouldn't even say, you shouldn't even listen to your doctors, but go do your own research, right? Understand what you're putting into your body, because nobody cares about you more than you, right? Nobody's got your best interests in mind but you. So at the end of the day, I mean, it all really falls on you to do your due diligence. And people are going to use steroids, right? And that's kind of the big topic here, right? Is again, not encouraging. I'm not an advocate for people to go and abuse steroids. I am an advocate of men over 35 going and getting their blood work done and potentially getting on TRT, but doing it safely, doing it intelligently, right? Taking the proper precautions, getting your blood work done, all of that has got to be done intelligently to get the benefit. Otherwise, you're putting yourself at unnecessary risk.
And I think people oftentimes they don't. The funny thing is when I hear people say they don't want to get tested because they don't want to know how bad things are. It's like that's 100% when you need to get tested. Like if you're
Exactly.
already feeling side effects from something or having issues, I think people you hit the nail on the head when you said that having low testosterone isn't natural because a lot of times, at least before the past few years of like what is it? It would have been 2021 when I went and got everything checked and balanced and stuff. I thought it was normal to just sleep poorly, to feel terrible, to have all these things of just low energy, a lot of times just not recovering well. And these things that, especially as you get older, typically get worse, or if you have underlying conditions that can cause these things to be out of balance. I would say people, for one, do your own research, but also if you do go with a doctor, consult someone who's an experienced endocrinologist who their focus is functional medicine, because there actually are doctors out there who will prescribe you slightly higher doses of testosterone or other things if you need, but doing it in a balanced and controlled way. Because a lot of times, like the amount of gym bro science you hear out there, like what is it? You hear people talk about like their cruising dose is like 500 milligrams of testosterone per week, and it's like,
250
for one, a doctor,
milligrams of tren.
yeah, your
I heard
doc,
that
your
before.
doctor,
I'm choosing on
yeah,
250 a tren. No, you're not. That's literally a moderate dose, dude. You fucking
yeah.
idiot.
Because for one, most of these, almost everything you shouldn't be measuring in grams. Like you'll see these people online talk about these insane things, whereas in reality, doing things in a controlled, less is more fashion typically will get better results because you'll oftentimes be surprised what these people at the top, some of them are actually doing. It's not as much or as reckless as you would think it is because oftentimes I think people don't always realize that you want to be doing all these things in general to enhance your life. Of you have people talk about like in the gym 7 days a week, you're training all the time, you're miserable, you hurt your back routinely, you get injured once every 6 months. And it's like, at what point, unless you're getting paid to do this and it's your career, and I'd say if it's your career, you should probably also have a doctor who's counseling you on these things so you
Definitely have
can
a
have that
doctor.
longevity. And I think the main thing people miss out on is that this stuff should be improving your life. The sport, whatever sport you're in, should be making things better. And
Yeah.
if it's not, re-examine things, because oftentimes I think people tend to let other people dictate what their lives mean. Of what they focus on, or you look at these people and think, oh, this person trains 7 days a week. I need to train exactly like West Side, or like these people who I see who are no days off, all these things. And some of the strongest people you'll see out there do take days off. They do take time away from things. Of like, I saw CJ Pierce took some time off for the holidays and came back better than ever. And like taking that time off, you're not going to lose all your gains by taking a week or two off. Like, in fact, your body's probably going to thank you if you're one of those people who just never takes any time off, because your body needs rest. Of like, rest really is where the
Okay.
gains are and everything. I know you're a huge
I'm a huge
proponent of
advocate
the
of that. Like,
CPAP.
dude, well,
Yeah,
talking about CPAP. I'll come back to that, but sleep. So I'm a huge advocate of rest, more so for athletes like elite, advanced to elite athletes, older athletes especially. But rest is like at the end of the day, like the training is the catalyst, right? The rest and recovery is where all the gains are made, right? And to me, there's like four main categories. I don't want to get off on another. I'm going to probably go off on another tangent here, but there's like four
you
main
got to do it.
categories to me, like that you really need to worry about. Right, again, getting to less is more, like keeping it simple, right? Everybody's familiar with the acronym "Keep It Simple, Smarty, KISS," or "Keep It Simple, Stupid." I think I hear more, which is pessimistic. I'm trying to be optimistic for a change. Keep it simple, Smarty. Um,
Nice.
um, right, it's diet, sleep, and I kind of go back and forth which one's more important. But diet, sleep, training, stress management. And I think that's the order of importance, because you have to eat well, right? You have to eat, period, right? Quality sleep and rest comes before training. Like it just does. Both of those come before good training, because I don't care how much you train if you're not recovering and you're not eating, right? Eating leads to recovery. Sleep is really that period of rest and restoration. Training, it doesn't matter how much training you do. If you're not meeting both of those, you're not going to make any gains. And the reason I put stress management after training is because I've had very stressful jobs and made great gains. Stress management is important, right? By all means. Um, but I think it kind of comes last after training, because it can be managed around it. But all very, very important aspects. And my tangent that I'm trying to not go off on is like I always hear all these influencers and people online always talking like, yeah, they sound really smart. They're always getting into the fine minutia of fat loss and training and diet and everything. And I'm like, dude, as an athlete or as a fitness enthusiast, you don't need to know all that fucking shit. It's pointless for you to know the science behind everything. Just like keep it simple, like nuts and bolts, right? Make sure
Mm-hmm.
you're getting good quality sleep. Like you can, there's all kinds of devices nowadays that can help you monitor the quality of your sleep, right? I've got a Fitbit. There's Whoops. Um, what's that? Like Apple's got one, I think. I don't know what the hell it's called. Something with I don't pay attention to
The Apple
Apple.
Watch. Yeah.
Apple Watch, I guess. I don't know, because that simple.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, but there's all kinds of things that help you monitor your sleep. Get that in order. Take measures to make sure you're getting good sleep. Diet, like seriously, calories in, calories out. Like if you can't figure that out, like nothing else fucking matters, right? It's really that simple, and I think the vast majority of people can work with that, and then get on a good training regime. You don't have to train every day. Um, Especially like if you're older, if you're an elite athlete, more rest is better, man. You don't need to go out and like train. If you're an elite athlete, you do not need to go out and be training sports specific events every single day of the fucking week. Those should be actually the last thing, because if you're not an expert at the movements of your sport, you're not an elite athlete. Right? You're still intermediate. But if you're an elite athlete, you don't need to focus on that stuff as much. You just need to be generally fit, right? GPP, general strength and training, and rest and recovery. I'm actually at a point right now, I'm 44 years old. I'm actually taking a lot more rest time between strength days. I used to train strength and events like 4 to 5 days a week. Now I train them maybe once, maybe twice, sometimes once every 2 weeks. And I'm hitting huge fucking gains. So it's remarkable. Whenever I hear people going into competition, like, you know, OSG, there were so many people that made the same comment about the deadlift. Like, in training, I could only hit 3 reps, but in competition, I hit 7. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's like, no, you took a fucking week of rest, dude. This is what rest and restoration does to you, right? That's where the gains were made. You were training yourself into the ground and not allowing your body to recover. And then you took some time to rest and, like, you know, it's a miracle.
Because that's the thing. So many people talk about just being absolutely miserable by then, and then you're second guessing yourself 2 weeks out because everything feels heavy.
No point in doing that.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think the thing you really helped me with was realizing that you don't necessarily have to train those heavy movements like deadlift and yoke specifically. Is something that can like take your energy out and impact the rest of your training. Of one of the best things you told me was like, if I keep doing heavy yoke like I was doing, that's going to impact my pressing days because it really does take a week to recover, sometimes longer. And you're doing those things where, unless like for most people, a lot of these things you should be doing a lot of technique work, getting your volume in, and you don't necessarily have to train farmers and like yoke all the time because after a while you have to think of trying to maximize your gains and your time. You want to train efficiently. If you see a lot of these people, a lot of the top people are doing that thing of training 3 4 days a week and listening to your body. Of there's nothing, unless you're like really someone who's struggling trying to build like a routine and regularity, it's actually probably counterproductive for you to go to the gym when you don't feel good and you don't feel up to it, because oftentimes you should be listening to your body. Of there's countless times I remember I, purely because I didn't want to miss workouts, would have a cold go from being something that I could have gotten over in like 2 or 3 days to like a week. I've gotten pneumonia multiple times in my life. I've gotten it almost every year because I just wouldn't listen to my body, and I would go until eventually you get enough fluid in your lungs that will stop you for a
Yeah,
bit and take
working
you
through
out.
sickness. You know, I don't know how much it happens anymore. I don't pay attention to as many people these days, but back when I first started, it used to be the cool thing to do. Like, if you're sick, oh, that's not going to stop me. Don't be a pussy. Go to the gym. And I was like, no, man, you should probably stay out of the gym and recover, right?
Don't get your friends sick. Like people who did that before
Don't get your fucking friends
OSG.
sick. Exactly. Don't get everybody else at the
Yeah.
gym sick. But yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, as a beginner novice lifter, it makes more sense. Like, to me, that's where like the periodized structured training probably makes more sense. Is it because those lifters need to develop those habits. They need the structure. They need to learn, you know, or learn that learning's not the right word, right? You develop the habit of discipline, right? To
Yeah.
go in and train when you need to and do what you need to do. And as a young beginning lifter, you don't need as much recovery. Your body is just like, you know, I don't know what the science again. I don't get into all of that. I'm a nuts and bolts meat and potatoes kind of guy, right? And anecdotal evidence is all I really know. But like young lifters, like their bodies are basically just seemingly primed and ready to gain, right? And you can go
Mm-hmm.
in and train and train and train and train and make huge gains very fast, right? That structured training makes sense to build those good habits. But the more advanced of a lifter you become, um, the less, in my opinion, right? It's my opinion. The less that structure makes sense, because for the vast majority of athletes, and the vast majority of us in general, right? Unless you're a professional athlete and get paid to be an athlete and can be an athlete every day of your life, structured training regimes do not fit on a dynamic lifestyle. And therefore it is, I think it's very important to kind of break away from that idea, or at least not confine yourself in a 12-week period, right? If you need to take a day off and push the program back a few days, do it, man. It's better for you, right? It's better to be recovered. Your readiness to train based on sleep and activity and diet and whatnot are going to make or break a good training day, right? And quality is far greater than quantity every single day of the week. And I think for everybody, really, but again, those beginners and novice athletes, or even fitness enthusiasts, need that structure, I think, to develop those good habits.
And I think also one thing people always talk about, like when they started out being able to lift a lot more, the thing that helped me, as one of my friends told me a while back, that your body knows how heavy it is, even if it doesn't necessarily feel heavy to you. It taxes your body differently as things go up. Like, at least in my experience of, like, let's say back years ago, working my way up to like trying to get that 4 plate deadlift and everything. I could deadlift 3 plates way more often, which was closer to my max back then than I could these days, going past and like trying to approach 5 plates or whatever. Like, that stresses the body a lot more. And I think people don't often realize that even if it doesn't feel heavy to you, your body still feels that tension on the tendons. Your central nervous system still knows it. Your body knows what 500 pounds feels like, and it impacts your body whether or not you're going to always feel it the same way. Lifting, like, I mean, lifting 700 pounds feels very different on the body, even if it's your max, than it would have when 500 pounds was your max, because that weight does add up. And it's not necessarily like a linear progression. Of a lot of times people think, well, oh, it's just like double body weight or whatever, but the heavier you get, the weight's going up. So it's not the same way. Of like, you can be a 150-pound person, lifting 300 pounds is going to impact your body differently than a 250-pound person lifting 500 pounds. Like, it's going to tax you differently, because if everything worked in a nice linear line, you'd have people at the top of the world being able to do 4 times their body weight deadlifts, and that just doesn't happen. I feel like
nothing is
unless you're Jamal
linear.
Browner.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guarantee he even takes a step back.
It's true.
Training is just never linear. I mean, unless you're one of those very rare people that has no and I can't even it's kind of like midichlorians, but it's not midichlorian.
Yeah.
From like Star Wars, right? It's so similar, and I can't spit it
Yeah.
out. But yeah, unless you're one of those rare people that's lacking that enzyme that causes muscle to break down, right? There's speculation that that's why Paul Anderson became so incredibly strong without steroids, is because he never lost the strength and muscle that he gained, where everybody else loses. Like, you can't avoid it. There's an enzyme in your body that eats it up, right? And so for the vast majority of people, there's no such thing as complete linear, right? Even on a periodized linear, even if you hit every day perfectly, at the end of it, you're still going to drop back and start, you might have made 3 steps and you're going to go back 2, right? Or whatever it is, maybe 1, and progress from there. So there's always a step back to training.
I think people, yeah.
I was just going to say that, I mean, I often wonder, right? Again, I'm not somebody that digs deep into the science, because it's not that it doesn't interest me. It's a lot of it kind of is also that a lot of the science doesn't really track strength athletes. A lot of it tracks Well, I mean, it attracts professional athletes, basketball players, right? Or it attracts like the average Joe, right? Average sedentary person. And so a lot of it's not very applicable to what we do anyway.
Hmm.
I mean, some of it is, right? But but I question a lot of times, is it age as much right now for me that makes that requires me to recover, or it's causing me to recover longer, or is it really the loads that I'm putting on my body? Because there's a pretty direct correlation. If you start at a younger age training, right, your gains, right? I drew a map of those and posted on my social media as kind of a joke, but it's really true. Is that early in your training, when you're young, your gains are huge, and as you progress, right, and you get older, the older you get, your gains shrink, right? Because it's harder to get stronger because you've already gained a shitload, but you're putting so much more stress on your body. Also, is it so much age? Is the loads that require more recovery? I think it may be a little bit of both. But the more I train, like the older I get, the more I think it's the loads. Because you're right. I can carry more than a 700-pound yoke, but every time I carry 700 pounds, it destroys me.
Yeah.
Um, every time I deadlift 600, well, yeah, 600 plus, maybe even 500 plus, really. I feel it for days, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think there is something to do, with that. Even though you're stronger, your body still knows that you're moving 700 pounds. One way or the whether or not you're able to move 1,000 or not, 700 still hurts. It can still be detrimental. And I mean, some of those movements just don't make sense for a lot of us. Not for everybody. Not everybody's the same, but I think for a lot of people, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be adding those very CNS stressing movements very often, right? At least not at high loads. At lighter loads, sure, right? And I think it goes back even with beginner and advanced, beginner and novice, maybe to amateur athletes who are in a specific sport, right? It's probably more important for them to be working sport specific movements more often, but not at heavy loads, because they need to learn the form, right?
No.
And but if you start putting them under heavy loads on a regular basis, it's gonna wreck their CNS, and they're not going to be able to train through all the other events. I mean, again, when you're young and dumb, like, go and train your ass off and max out every day. Like, you're gonna make huge gains one way or the other. But there's a point where I mean, you really probably shouldn't. But I mean, you can't get away with that when you're young, right? But
Yeah.
there's a point where it's going to catch up to you, and you need to start being smarter about how you train.
And I think that's the main thing is oftentimes people need to realize that what they see on social media isn't necessarily the full picture. What's interesting is people are talking about um,
I
what
get
was it
PRs
last week?
every single day
Yeah,
I train, John.
like Jamal Browner. People were talking about
I
him
never fail.
struggling with with like the five. He did like 848 pounds for like 5 reps, and people they're like, that looked harder than it should have. And it's like he was like, this was actually from the same workout. He did pause triples at 925. He's posting them on different days because I guarantee you he's not deadlifting that heavy more than once a week, probably. Like a lot of times, these people, we assume that what we see a workout video from them every day of the week. Most of these people, they recorded multiple good videos. They switched the camera angle. Like his 925 was from one angle, his 845 was from the other angle. It looks slightly different in its content, but it's not his actual training program. He's not going that heavy 2 days in a week and everything. I
You
think,
wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think
I
so. But I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
everybody trains different.
he
And
could.
look, at the end of the day, if you can figure out what works best for you, I mean, that's the hardest part about strength training, and training in general, is learning what works the best for you. And what works best for
Yeah,
you isn't going to necessarily work good for someone else,
which
and
is a
vice
good
versa.
segue.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, but yeah, the reality, I think, is for the vast majority of people posting on social media is like, we all fail. We fail a lot. And people tend to just post the good days. make it look like they're always PRing, and the reality is that they're probably not. That's hard to attain long term, or hard to sustain rather long term.
Yeah, because there's going to be a cost for that. If like everything has consequences and everything,
Absolutely.
but I mean, we had talked possibly earlier in the week about ways we could give advice because that was the main point of this episode is realizing that both of us have spent and probably wasted a good chunk of money over the past few years. I know at least for me, I wasted a lot more money in the past 5 years than I should have. Did I lose you?
No, I'm just like I'm whispering,
Okay.
like I'm just mouthing it. I've wasted so much money. Like I'm
So
shaking
much.
myself like in shame. It was like that was me just
When you
doing the
go back and
shame.
you think you're like, if I could tell myself 5 years ago the information I know now, which it's like that for everything in life. But I think
I
you
mean,
do have to do your research and get advice from people and everything.
I mean, it's a good idea, right? Um, I mean, I'm here for anybody, right? I've helped a couple of friends in the last probably week or so, who are not feeling up to par. Guys are both are 40 plus now, and they came to me and asked me questions about testosterone use. I pointed one to a TRT clinic. Turns out that his testosterone was like 290 or something like that. He's getting on TRT. Thankfully, that's too fucking low. Another guy, again, my recommendation to everybody is to go to a TRT clinic or see a doctor. But, some people are just going to go and buy their stuff from the black market. It's easier, it's cheaper, right? But still, do your due diligence. And if you have any questions and you need to, you need a good sounding board, you need somebody to give you good guidance, right? I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to recommend, I'm certainly not going to recommend that you go and take a bunch of shit that you don't need. But if anybody needs someone to talk to, I'm here. And I'm more than happy to give people what I think is the very best advice from a member of the community, right? I believe I'm gonna steer you in the best direction possible. But I know it's hard to bring up these topics with doctors. It's hard to find the right doctors sometimes to talk to. I mean, TRT clinics are becoming more prevalent, I think, thankfully. But if anybody needs some, for lack of a better word, cycle advice, right? We're definitely going to offer that service through WSO. It's not going to be like if you're looking for somebody to tell you that it's cool to take 750 milligrams of tren. That's not me. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. But
Yeah, and I think that's the main
fuck
thing.
off with your 750 milligrams of tren. But if you need, like, you want to get you need somebody to tell you like what you don't want to hear, right? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, because we've talked about we have different ways you could support the show. We have a Patreon page. We're going to update some of the options there, and then we have like one-time ways to support the show through Anchor FM, which is actually what we use for our RSS feed for the podcast. But Darin and I had been talking about that of just trying to offer different services to people. Of we're talking about possibly offering different ways to support us. If you just want to support like $5, there are tiers like that, but also trying to provide value for people. Of Darin talked about starting like a fitness community and training, possibly for like $75 a month, be able to get like streamlined group programming and the community that we can help foster. Because oftentimes I think people don't always know where to look and things can be expensive and you can lose money via programming, bad supplement advice, bad nutrition advice. So we're trying to, we haven't been keeping up with the Patreon page very well, but no one's on there yet. So that's neither here nor there. But we are going to start offering those things. Of Darin's a great, knowledgeable person. We're hopefully going to have him here in Texas at some point in the next few months. But offering
Seminar,
things like
baby.
that, yeah, seminars, because that's the main thing. Is we've been trying to find ways to like give back, but also find ways to support the show, but also to help people of different things we've talked about. Darin's offering would be offering tailored programming for higher level tiers and everything, but also he is available for like one time calls or advice of like whether it's anything of supplements, nutrition, training advice. Like we can do Zoom calls now. We just upgraded to StreamYard, so we can do slightly higher quality calls that way. But yeah, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just recap. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to I want to be able to reach more people. I know that programming is expensive. So what John had talked about is the group training. So basically, just based on general goals, you'd be put in a group like strongman, bodybuilding, general fitness, right, fat loss, um, and for $75 a month you're going to get streamlined training. Now it's not going to be like the other coaches where you get one-on-ones once a week. It's going to be streamlined where it's going to be more group oriented. There are going to be check-ins. Monthly seminars will be included. There's a lot of value to it, but it's an option for people that maybe don't have as much disposable income, but still need some coaching, some direction. Definitely going to offer that. The elite programming, I'm probably not going to take on a lot of clients from that perspective, but advanced to elite programming to help some of the higher level athletes, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Obviously, more engagement from me. Those weekly one-on-ones, I'm going to be available probably 7 days a week to answer questions and additional support as needed. And then counsel. I'm calling it counseling. From a supplement cycle perspective, because I want to help people. I want to try and point people in a better direction than what I've seen. Many are going down. The paths that they're going down are really, in my opinion, destructive. They're not positive. They're people are putting so much shit in their bodies for the stupidest fucking reasons, right? And
You
so
don't
I
think
want
dollar store trophies?
for glory and plastic trophies is not a good reason, but people are going to use. And I've got a tremendous amount of knowledge, and I'd like to share that with anybody that needs somebody to talk to help guide their decisions. And again, I'm telling you right now, though, maybe this is a detractor from the service, but I'm not going to be the guy to tell you to go and stack like 3 different compounds and not get your blood work done and just shoot for the moon. That's not going to be me. I'm going to be the more level-headed, reasonable individual that tells you to do things the smart way. Same with diet advice. A lot of people have really struggled with diet. Giving you a good structure and baseline to plan your dietary needs from, and understanding how to determine what you need and eating for your goals, developing menus for your goals. And that's actually kind of a segue. I think I'm going to start another social media thing, and geared more towards food and diet. A lot of people don't know that I have a professional culinary arts degree. I worked as a professional chef for many years in my late teens and 20s. I don't believe in eating bland food. I guess if you're a bodybuilder and your goal is to be 3% body fat, maybe that makes sense. But for the vast majority of us, right, there's no such thing as bad food. There's only bad habits. And it's possible to eat tasty food and still meet composition goals. Anybody can look at, my social media and see what I've attained. It's all me. I don't have a dietitian. I don't have a diet coach, right? That's me doing this for myself. So clearly, my methodology works. Again, it's a great service. I hope people tap into it. Got a lot to share, a lot of knowledge that you can tap into. So I think that's it. Support WSO, man. If you like these podcasts, like, give us some support, and we're gonna keep pumping these out.
Yeah, and the main thing is what we're going to break out several levels and everything, but we want to provide value so that way you're not just giving us money for free and
Hmm.
everything, because we do
Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
help make the show better. But also, I think the most important thing to take away from this episode is that everything you do in your life, you generally want it to improve your life. And you have far too many people, their diet makes them miserable, their training makes them miserable, their supplements make them miserable. If you have people taking pre workout at 6:30 at night and wondering why they can't sleep when they're taking 400 milligrams of caffeine, it's like everything you do, even your extra supplements, like these things should be supplemental to a good life. And I think oftentimes people don't always realize, and it took me years to realize that it's not necessarily natural to feel bad all the time and have low energy. And you can also eat very well. Darren likes to share his food in our group channel a lot of times just to flex on me, because half the time I just order DoorDash because DoorDash Premium, it's great. But yeah, in general, everything you do in your life, you want to, especially, and this is, I'm not just saying this because it's a New Year's thing, New Year, New Me, because in the end, you don't have anything but the present. So it's all about the decisions you continue to make now going forward. Because oftentimes, Darren and I have talked about this, it's easy to look back and think, here's all the mistakes I made. I wish I could have done things differently, but I can do something different today and I can do something different tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is really
Mistakes are
important.
important though. I'm always
Yeah,
gonna like I'm always
it's
gonna err
true.
on that, right? Um,
Yeah,
Everybody's got to make mistakes because mistakes are how we learn and how we grow. Um, but it's still nice, to have sounding boards and have someone to talk to, that can take and it can advise you and help you make decisions that are best for yourself, right? At the end of the day, I'm never going to tell anybody that you have to do something, right? This is my advice. You need to decide whether or not that's the right advice for you, but I'm going to give you more information, to help you make a more educated decision for yourself. And that's the most
yeah.
important thing. Like if anybody ever tells you that you have to do something, I would move past them very, very quickly. If they tell you that you're not going to make your reach your goals without them, pass by that person, like swipe left or whatever right away, right? I've never used Tinder. Is it
Yeah,
left or right? I don't know.
I think I think it's swiped right to, I don't know. Once again, I missed out on that period as well. I did
Yeah,
not
everybody
get
talks
into
about
any of
swipe.
the online
Like I
dating.
don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we're very lucky
swipe
that
the
we're
way
not.
that goes like away from them, whatever that is.
Yeah,
Like,
because
yeah,
yeah,
we're here to help, right? And I think that's the most important thing. Like, I'm not going to coerce anybody. I'm not going to tell you you have to do something. I'm going to be, I'm here to give people the best advice that I can to help them make the most educated decision, the best decision for themselves, right? And always, always, always back that up with go do your own research. Nobody cares about you more than you do. Nobody has your best interest in mind more than you do, right? Um, but 18 years of experience coming from me, over 14 years of competition experience in strongman. I've seen some shit and done some shit. So happy to talk to anybody that needs some additional guidance.
yeah. No, I think that's a good note to end things on. Everything that, yeah, we're out here.
Support us on Patreon or Anchor, and find us on Instagram or Facebook.